The stars stretched endlessly across the viewing window of the Earth exploration vessel Prometheus. Commander Sasha Volkov stood with her hands clasped behind her back, dark eyes focused on the strange planet coming into view. After 3 years, in deep space, this was humanity's first encounter with what appeared to be an advanced alien civilization. "Life signs confirmed, Commander," Lieutenant Park announced from his station. "Billions of them, and they've definitely spotted us." Volkov nodded, her expression remaining calm despite her racing heart. "Open communications on all frequencies. Standard greeting package." The bridge fell silent as they waited. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, but no amount of training could truly prepare them for first contact. "Commander," Communications Officer Chen called out suddenly, "we're receiving a response. It's perfect English." Volkov raised an eyebrow. "They've decoded our language already?" "It appears so. They're requesting visual communication. Put it on screen." The main display flickered, and the crew of the Prometheus collectively gasped. The alien was unlike anything they had imagined. Its body appeared to be made of translucent crystal, with light playing through its form in complex patterns. Where a human would have a face, this being had a cluster of geometric structures that shifted and realigned as it spoke. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the being said, its voice melodic and clear. "We are the Marilani. We have been observing your transmissions for many years." Volkov stepped forward. "I am Commander Sasha Volkov of the Earth exploration vessel Prometheus. We come in peace and friendship." "Peace is something we desperately need," the Marilani responded. "We have little time. Our star is dying. Within 10 of your Earth years, this world will be uninhabitable." Over the next few days, the Prometheus crew learned much about the Marilani. They were an ancient species with incredible minds. They could solve complex mathematical problems instantly and had technology far beyond Earth's understanding. But they had one critical weakness. Their crystalline bodies were fragile and poorly suited for space travel. Volkov was granted permission to land with a small team. Stepping onto the alien world was surreal. The landscape was filled with towering crystal structures that seemed to grow naturally from the ground. The air was breathable but thin, making the humans move carefully in their lightweight environmental suits. Their guide was a Marilani named Tsirith, who appeared older than the others, with complex fractal patterns etched into its crystalline form. "Our people have achieved much," Tsirith explained as they toured a vast library that stored knowledge in crystal formations rather than books or computers. "But we never developed the physical adaptations necessary for surviving long space journeys or harsh environments. We are, as you might say, too fragile for survival." "But your minds," Dr. Reyes, the ship's scientist, remarked in awe. "Your computational abilities are incredible." "Yet we cannot save ourselves," Tsirith said simply. "Our attempts at building automated ships have failed. Without biological pilots who can withstand the stresses of space, we are trapped here as our star dies." That evening, back aboard the Prometheus, Volkov called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. "They're facing extinction," she said plainly. "They have the knowledge to build evacuation ships, but not the physical capability to pilot them." "What are you suggesting, Commander?" asked Chief Engineer Okafor. Volkov took a deep breath. "I'm suggesting we help them. We have the space vessels and the physical resilience they lack. They have knowledge that could advance Earth's technology by centuries. This goes beyond our mission parameters," Security Chief Tanaka pointed out. "We'd need approval from Earth government." "Then we'll ask for it," Volkov said firmly. "But I won't leave here knowing we could have saved an entire civilization and chose not to." 2 months later, after countless transmissions with Earth authorities, approval came through. The Prometheus would be just the first of many human ships that would come to help the Marilani evacuate their dying world. The news of humanity's decision spread quickly across the galaxy. The Prometheus crew was surprised to learn that the Marilani had limited contact with other advanced species, collectively known as the Galactic Conquered. None had offered help. 6 months into the evacuation planning, a diplomatic vessel from the Concorde arrived in orbit. Volkov was asked to represent humanity at a formal meeting with representatives from the major galactic powers. The Concord meeting chamber was designed to accommodate diverse species. Volkov found herself seated, across from beings of all descriptions, some resembling Earth animals, others completely alien. Most imposing was the Varex ambassador, a reptilian being with armored skin and eyes that reminded Volkov of a predator. "We are confused by humanity's actions," said the Varex ambassador, Drax. His voice was deep and rumbling. "The Marilani offer no strategic advantage. They control no valuable territories. Their military capability is non-existent. Why expend such resources to save them?" Volkov looked around the table, surprised by the question. "They asked for help," she said simply. "On Earth, that's reason enough." "Illogical," stated another alien representative, this one appearing like a floating collection of gas. "Resources should be allocated based on potential return." "Is survival not return enough?" Volkov asked. "Every species has the right to exist." "A charming but impractical philosophy," Drax dismissed. "The strong survive, the weak perish. This is the natural order." Volkov stood up straight, meeting the reptilian's gaze without flinching. "Then perhaps we have different definitions of strength. On Earth, we've learned that our greatest strength comes not from dominating others, but from helping each other." The meeting ended with no resolution. But as Volkov returned to her ship, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in a way no one had expected. Not with weapons or threats, but with compassion. Within a year, the first Marilani were safely transported to Callisto, one of Jupiter's moons, which Earth scientists had begun terraforming with Marilani technology. The alliance between humans and the crystalline aliens grew stronger each day. What neither species realized was that their friendship had marked them as targets. In the shadowy meeting rooms of the Varex Empire, plans were already being made. Humanity had made a powerful impression on the galaxy, and some saw it as a deadly threat to the established order. Commander Volkov looked out at the stars from her quarters on Callisto, watching as more ships arrived with Marilani refugees. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but she was certain of one thing: humanity had made the right choice. 5 years passed quickly. What had begun as a rescue mission had grown into something much more profound. Callisto, once a frozen moon of Jupiter, now glittered with Marilani crystal structures alongside human habitats. The two species worked together seamlessly, each bringing different strengths to their shared home. Kira Levine walked through the main plaza of New Hope, the largest settlement on Callisto. As an intelligence officer for Earth's newly formed Diplomatic Security Corps, her job was to monitor communications from across the galaxy. In recent months, those communications had become increasingly troubling. "Officer Levine," called a musical voice. Kira turned to see Zirith approaching. The elder Marilani moved with surprising grace despite its crystalline body. After 5 years among humans, many Marilani had adopted clothing. Tzirith wore a simple blue robe that complemented its natural colors. "Elder Tzirith," Kira smiled. "Perfect timing. I was hoping to speak with you." They walked together through gardens where earth plants grew alongside crystal formations that the Marilani cultivated as art. The blend of the two worlds was beautiful. "You look concerned," Tzirith observed. "The Varex communications again?" Kira nodded. "Their ships are moving closer to human trade routes. They claim it's just regular patrol activity, but the pattern suggests otherwise. They're studying us. The Varex fear what they don't understand," Tzirith said. "And they don't understand your species at all." "I don't think they're afraid," Kira replied. "I think they're planning something. Every other species in the Concord follows their rules. Strength. Above all, the weak serve the strong. Then humans show up and upset their whole system." Tzirith's crystal form shimmered, a sign of deep thought among the Marilani. "There is something I must share with you, but not here. Please, come to the research center." The Marilani Human Research Center was the heart of their technological cooperation. Here, Marilani thought processes combined with human ingenuity to create advancements that neither species could have developed alone. Earth's technology had leaped forward decades in just 5 years. In a secure room deep within the facility, Zirith activated a crystal display. Complex patterns of light formed in the air between them. "What am I looking at?" Kira asked. "Something we have kept secret, even from our human friends," Zirith replied. "This is the molecular structure of an element we discovered centuries ago. We call it luminite. When properly synthesized, it creates a field that can bend spacetime in ways your scientists have only theorized." Kira's eyes widened. "Faster than light travel?" "Much faster, and more efficient than any current method. A ship equipped with luminite drives could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of years." "This would revolutionize everything," Kira whispered. "Why keep it secret?" Zirith's form darkened slightly, the equivalent of a human frown. "Because we feared it would change how you viewed us. When you found us, you helped because we needed help, not because we offered you something valuable in return. The distinction matters deeply to us. But why tell me now? Because the Varex would destroy worlds to possess this knowledge, and I fear they have learned of its existence." Kira felt a chill run through her. "How?" "Not all Marilani escaped our homeworld," Zirith explained sadly. "Some were taken. Before your arrival, the Varex visited our world once long ago. They saw no value in our people and left, but they took samples, both of our crystalline technology and some of our people." "They kidnapped your people?" Kira asked, horrified. "For study, as one might collect interesting insects." Zirith's voice carried no anger, only sorrow. "We believe they have been forcing captured Marilani to develop technologies. Perhaps they have finally made the connection between luminite and faster-than-light possibilities." Kira's security training kicked in. "We need to alert Earth Command immediately. If the Varex are moving ships toward our routes and they know about this technology..." The emergency alert system blared suddenly, cutting her off. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. "Attention all personnel," came Commander Volkov's voice over the speakers. "We have received word that the Marilani research outpost on Europa has been attacked. There are no survivors. All security forces to alert status. This is not a drill." Kira and Zirith rushed to the command center, where Volkov, now Admiral of Earth's expanded space fleet, stood before a large tactical display. Her face was grim as she acknowledged them. "The attack came without warning," Volkov explained. "A single Varex warship appeared, destroyed the outpost, and vanished before our patrols could respond." "It was a message," Kira said. "They're telling us they can hit us anywhere, anytime. But why?" asked Dr. Reyes, who had become the lead human scientist working with the Marilani. "Why now, after 5 years of peace?" Zirith stepped forward. "Because of what we know." The elder Marilani briefly explained about luminite and its potential. Admiral Volkov's expression hardened. "So they're after your knowledge. They think they can intimidate us into handing over both your people and this technology." "The Varex understand only strength," Zirith said sadly. "In their eyes, the Marilani are not people. We are resources to be used. And humans, by choosing to protect us, have marked yourselves as targets." "Then they've made a serious miscalculation," Volkov stated firmly. "Humanity doesn't abandon its friends." The tactical display suddenly lit up with an incoming transmission. "Admiral," said a communications officer, "we're receiving a broadcast from the Varex Empire. It's being sent to every human settlement in the solar system." "On screen," Volkov ordered. The display changed to show the imposing figure of a Varex in ornate armor. His scales were deep crimson, marked with black patterns that signified high rank. "People of Earth," the Varex said, his voice deep and threatening. "I am Emperor Zorix the Unyielding. You harbor resources that rightfully belong to the strong. The creatures you call Marilani possess knowledge that is wasted under your protection. You have 30 standard cycles to surrender the entire Marilani population to Varex authority. Fail to comply and your species will face extinction. This is not negotiable." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. "Well," Volkov said finally, "I guess the Varex have never met humans before. They're about to learn a very important lesson." Kira looked at Cirith, whose crystalline form trembled slightly. "What happens now?" the Marilani asked. "Now," Volkov said, her voice firm with resolve, "we prepare to defend what's ours. The Varex think threatening our friends will make us surrender. They're about to discover that was the galaxy's deadliest mistake." News of the Varex ultimatum spread across Earth and its colonies like wildfire. For the first time since making contact with alien life, humanity faced a direct threat of war from a vastly more advanced civilization. Ambassador Elena Chen stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Council in Geneva. At 45, she had become Earth's primary representative to the Galactic conquered. Today, her normally calm face showed the strain of 3 days without sleep. "The Varex Emperor's threat is not just against our Miralani friends," she explained to the assembled leaders. "It's a fundamental challenge to humanity's place in the galaxy. The Varex believe that might makes right, that stronger species should control weaker ones. By protecting the Miralani, we have directly challenged their worldview." "What are our options?" asked the council president, his voice grim. "The Varex fleet outnumbers ours 10 to 1, and their technology is centuries ahead of what we can field." Admiral Volkov, attending via holographic projection from Callisto, spoke up. "We cannot match them ship for ship, that's true. But we've been working with Miralani engineers on defensive systems. With their help, we might be able to hold our own longer than the Varex expect." "And if we can't?" asked another counselor. "Are we really risking human extinction for an alien species?" The room fell silent. It was the question many had thought, but few had dared to voice. Ambassador Chen straightened her shoulders. "If we surrender the Miralani, we betray everything humanity stands for. Throughout our history, whenever we've abandoned those who needed protection, we've lost something essential to our humanity." "Ambassador Chen is right," said Volkov. "Besides, does anyone believe the Varex would stop with the Miralani? Once they see we can be intimidated, they'll demand more and more until we're essentially their slaves." As the council debated, something unexpected was happening across Earth and its colonies. Ordinary citizens, watching the news of the ultimatum, began organizing without any government direction. On Mars colony, miners volunteered their vessels to help evacuate civilians from potential battle zones. In orbital habitats, families offered to share their limited living space with Miralani refugees. Most surprisingly, on Callisto itself, thousands of human civilians formed a volunteer defense force, positioning themselves as living shields around Miralani communities. Maria Santos, a teacher from New Hope's primary school, led one such group. She had no military training but found herself organizing 300 fellow teachers, parents, and other civilians into a human barrier around the main Miralani Educational Center. "We're staying right here," she told a military officer who tried to move them to safety. "If the Varex want to harm our students, they'll have to go through us first." Similar scenes played out across human space. When footage spread through the Concord Communications Network, showing humans forming protective lines around their crystalline friends, the reaction from other species was one of confusion. "This behavior defies logic," remarked a Talaxian diplomat to Ambassador Chen at the Concord station. "Humans are deliberately placing themselves in danger for non-humans who cannot even offer significant military assistance." "That's what friends do," Chen replied simply. "We protect each other." Yangtze Gomro. In Earth orbit, military preparations continued at a frantic pace. The largest defensive fleet in human history was assembling, though everyone knew it wouldn't be enough against the full might of the Varex Empire. In a secure laboratory deep within Callisto, Admiral Volkov met with a special team of human scientists and Miralani engineers. Among them was Cirith and Dr. Reyes working side by side as they had for years. "Show me what you've got," Volkov said without preamble. Dr. Reyes activated a holographic display. "We're calling it Project Luminous Shield. Using principles derived from Luminite studies, We've developed a way to create a defensive field around our ships and settlements. Will it stop Varek's weapons? Volkov asked. Not entirely, Zirith answered, but it will reduce their effectiveness by approximately 60%. More importantly, the field can be tuned to redirect some of the energy back toward the source. You're saying we can make their weapons backfire on them? To an extent, Dr. Reyes nodded. It won't be enough to win the war, but it might surprise them enough to buy us time. Volkov studied the technical specifications. How soon can we deploy this? We've already begun installing prototypes on the primary defense fleet, Reyes said. But there's a problem. We don't have enough luminite to protect all of our ships. We need to prioritize. Priority goes to civilian evacuation vessels, Volkov said immediately. Then medical ships. Then key defensive positions around Callisto and Earth. Not the main battleships? Reyes asked, surprised. No. Those of us who signed up for military service knew the risks. Civilians come first. Volkov's tone made it clear this wasn't open for debate. As the deadline approached, Ambassador Chen made one last effort at diplomacy. She requested a direct meeting with Emperor Zorix at the neutral ground of the Concord station. To everyone's surprise, he agreed. The meeting chamber was designed to accommodate various species, but the Varex Emperor's massive form still dominated the space. He towered over Chen, his crimson scales gleaming under the lights, flanked by 4 heavily armed guards. You waste my time, human, Zorix rumbled. The ultimatum stands. Surrender the Miralani and their knowledge or face extinction. Chen met, his gaze without flinching. I'm here to understand why you believe this is necessary. Our species could be partners rather than enemies. Zorix made a sound that might have been a laugh. Partners? The strong do not partner with the weak. It is against the natural order. Yet that's exactly what humans and Miralani have done, Chen pointed out, and together we've achieved more than either could alone. A temporary arrangement, Zorix dismissed. Eventually the weak always serve the strong. It is inevitable. Perhaps strength isn't what you think it is, Chen suggested. On Earth, we've learned that our greatest strength comes from our connections with others, not our ability to dominate them. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Pretty words from a species about to learn a harsh lesson. Your deadline expires tomorrow. Be prepared to witness the consequences of your defiance. As Chen left the meeting, she knew diplomacy had failed. War was coming. Yet despite the overwhelming odds, she felt a strange sense of pride in humanity's response. Not a single human government or colony had suggested surrendering the Miralani to save themselves. On Callisto, as the deadline approached, Maria Santos and her group of civilian volunteers remained at their posts around the Miralani school. A military officer brought them protective gear and basic medical supplies. You should evacuate while you still can, he advised. The first attacks will likely target Callisto directly. Maria shook her head. We're staying. The children, both, human and Miralani, need to see that we don't abandon each other when things get difficult. As the final hours ticked away, Admiral Volkov addressed the combined human Miralani forces from the bridge of her flagship, the UES Defender. Tomorrow we face an enemy that believes we will break under pressure, she said, her voice transmitted to every ship and settlement. They think because the Miralani cannot match them physically, and because humans cannot match them technologically, that we will surrender. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten a human ally. Countdown to war had begun. The Varex struck exactly when their ultimatum expired. Thousands of warships appeared simultaneously at multiple jump points throughout the solar system. Their formation was perfect, disciplined and precise, exactly what you would expect from a species that had conquered dozens of star systems. Admiral Volkov watched from the bridge of the UES Defender as the enemy fleet approached Jupiter. The main Varex force was heading straight for Callisto, confirming their primary target was the Miralani. All ships, defensive positions, she ordered calmly. Civilian evacuation vessels, begin your runs. Remember your training and remember what we're fighting for. The human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned. Under normal circumstances, the battle would have been over in minutes, but these were not normal circumstances. As the first Varex battleships came within range, they fired, their primary weapons, beams of focused energy that could cut through standard shields like paper. The officers on the Defender held their breath, waiting to see if the luminous shield technology would work. The energy beams struck the invisible barrier around the human ships and split into fractured light, most of it deflected away. What was more, about 20% of the energy bounced back toward the Varex ships, causing minor damage to their forward sections. On the Varex command ship, Supreme Commander Drakthor stared in disbelief. "Impossible," he growled. "Their technology is primitive. They cannot have developed shields that resist our weapons." The Marilani, his second-in-command, suggested. "They must have shared technology." Drakthor's eyes narrowed. "Adjust firing patterns, full barrage." The Varex fleet opened fire with everything they had. This time, some of the shots broke through the luminous shields, damaging several human vessels. But the defense was holding far better than the Varex had anticipated. What confused the Varex even more was the humans' battle strategy, or apparent lack of one. Instead of maintaining formation, human captains fought with seemingly random tactics. When a civilian transport came under fire, 3 military vessels broke formation to protect it, sacrificing their strategic position. Mining ships, hastily equipped with makeshift weapons, charged directly at Varex cruisers, causing minimal damage but creating chaos in the perfectly ordered enemy formations. "They fight without logic," Drakthor observed, watching the battle unfold. "There is no pattern to predict." Meanwhile, on Callisto, the first Varex ground forces had breached the outer defenses. Troops in heavy armor moved methodically through the streets of New Hope, heading for the main Marilani residential district. What they found was not what they expected. The streets weren't empty. They were filled with humans, ordinary civilians standing shoulder to shoulder, forming a living barrier between the invaders and their Marilani friends. The Varex commander, a battle-scarred veteran named Krell, raised his hand to halt his troops. Through his translator, he addressed the humans. "Stand aside," he ordered. "We have no quarrel with you, only with the crystal beings behind you. Move now and you will be spared." Maria Santos, the schoolteacher who had organized this particular group of volunteers, stepped forward. Unlike the soldiers facing her, she wore no armor, just simple civilian clothes and a determined expression. "We will not move," she said firmly. "If you want to harm our friends, you'll have to go through us first." Krell was genuinely confused. In Varex society, sacrificing oneself for others, especially non-Varex, was unthinkable. It showed weakness, not strength. "You would die for these fragile creatures?" he asked, his translator conveying his bewilderment. "They're not creatures," Maria replied. "They're our friends, our neighbors, our children's teachers. Yes, we would die for them, just as they would for us." The standoff continued for several tense moments. Finally, Krell made a decision. "Take them," he ordered his troops. "Capture as many humans as possible. The Emperor will want to understand this behavior." The soldiers advanced. The human civilians stood their ground, armed with nothing but their courage. When the first shots were fired, Maria closed her eyes, expecting death. Instead, she heard the distinctive sound of Marilani crystal song, a high, clear tone that resonated through the air. She opened her eyes to see a shimmering barrier of light between the humans and the Varex troops. Behind them, Marilani were focusing their mental energies, creating a temporary shield. "We protect each other," said a Marilani child, one of Maria's students, its small crystalline form vibrating with effort as it helped maintain the barrier. The delay gave human military forces time to arrive. The battle for Callisto became a bloody street-by-street struggle. In space, Admiral Volkov was putting her main plan into action. The initial defense had only been Phase 1. Phase 2 began when the Varex committed most of their forces to the attack. "All ships, execute Pattern Omega," she ordered. Across the battlefield, human vessels suddenly broke away from defensive positions. Some appeared to be retreating in disarray. The Varex, seeing what looked like a rout, pressed forward. Eagerly, They break, Drakthor said with satisfaction. Victory is at hand. What he didn't realize was that the human ships were executing a carefully choreographed maneuver. As the Varex fleet surged forward, pursuing what they thought were fleeing enemies, the human ships suddenly reversed course in perfect coordination. Simultaneously, hidden vessels equipped with the most powerful versions of the luminous shield emerged from Jupiter's dense atmosphere, where they had been concealed. In a single synchronous moment, the human fleet attacked from multiple directions. The Varex found themselves caught in a three-dimensional trap. Impossible. Drakthor snarled as his tactical display showed Varex ships being damaged from all sides. They are primitive. They cannot coordinate an attack of this complexity. What the Varex commander failed to understand was that human battle tactics were not based solely on logic and precision, but on creativity and adaptability. The Marilani, with their computational abilities, had calculated the exact moment when the Varex would commit to pursuit. The humans, with their unconventional thinking, had designed a battle plan that no logic-driven species would have predicted. The combined human Marilani attack wasn't enough to defeat the Varex fleet, but it caused significant damage and confusion. For the first time in centuries, a Varex attack had not resulted in immediate victory. On his command ship, Emperor Zorix received the unexpected news. His face showed no emotion, but his tail lashed violently, betraying his anger. Drakthor has failed, he said coldly. Prepare my personal fleet. I will show these humans the true meaning of strength. Back on the Defender, Admiral Volkov allowed herself a small smile as reports came in. The Varex were regrouping, but they had lost nearly 200 ships to the humans' 30. Phase 1 complete, she said. Now for the hard part. Lieutenant. Park looked up from his console. The hard part, Admiral. Volkov nodded grimly. We've surprised them. Now they'll be angry, and more determined than ever. The real war is just beginning. News of humanity's unexpected resistance against the Varex spread through the Galactic Concord like wildfire. Species that had lived under Varex domination or threat for centuries watched in stunned disbelief as humans, newcomers to the Galactic community, did what no one else had dared to do. Ambassador Elena Chen worked tirelessly aboard the conquered station. While Earth's military fought for survival, she was waging a different kind of battle, for the hearts and minds of the galaxy's other species. The Varex have maintained their power through fear, she explained to a group of representatives from various worlds. They've convinced everyone that resistance is impossible. We've just proven that's not true. But you cannot win, said the Talaxian ambassador, his feathered crest lying flat against his head in concern. The Varex control thousands of worlds. They will simply send more ships, Chen smiled. We don't need to defeat their entire empire. We just need to show the galaxy there's another way. A way based on cooperation rather than domination. While Chen built diplomatic support, Lieutenant Kira Levine was leading the most ambitious intelligence operation in human history. From a hidden base on Titan, she coordinated a network of small, fast vessels heading to every world the Varex had conquered or threatened over the centuries. We're not offering military intervention, she instructed the captains before they departed. We're offering partnership. Share our technology, our tactics, our experiences. Show them that together, we can all resist. One such captain was Raj Mehta, commanding the scout ship Venture. His destination was Nix 3, a mining world where the native Gorlani had been forced to extract resources for the Varex for over a century. When the Venture arrived in the Nix system, they were immediately hailed by Varex patrol ships. Unidentified. Vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself or be destroyed. Captain Mehta took a deep breath. This is Captain Mehta of Earth Vessel Venture. We come with a message for the Gorlani people. Earth vessels are not welcome in Varex territory. Leave immediately or... The transmission suddenly cut off. A new voice came over the comm. Earth vessel, this is Voras of the Gorlani Resistance. We've been waiting for your arrival. The local Varex garrison is preoccupied with an unexpected problem in their security systems. Within hours, Captain Mehta was meeting with Gorlani resistance leaders in a hidden underground facility. The Gorlani were stocky, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. For generations we've worked their mines, harvested their crops, built their ships, Voris explained. All because we believed we had no choice. Then we hear that humans, a species new to the stars, chose to fight rather than surrender their friends. Meta shared data on the luminous shield technology and the battle tactics that had confused the Varex. The key is unpredictability. The Varex expect everyone to behave logically, to prioritize self-preservation. When you don't follow their rules, they don't know how to respond. All across Varex-controlled space, similar scenes were playing out. Species that had lived under oppression saw a chance, small but real, to reclaim their freedom. Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, the war continued. The Varex had been surprised but not defeated. Emperor Zorix himself had arrived with his personal fleet, the most powerful warships in the Empire. On the Concord station, Ambassador Chen was summoned to an emergency meeting of the full Concord Assembly. This was unprecedented. The Concord usually avoided direct involvement in conflicts between member species. The assembly chamber was massive, designed to accommodate representatives of all known intelligent species. Chen took her place at the human delegation's podium, conscious of the thousands of eyes and other sensory organs focused on her. The Concord Arbiter, a member of an ancient and neutral species, spoke first. This assembly has been called to address the conflict between the Varex Empire and the United Earth government. The scale of this conflict threatens the stability of the Concord itself. Emperor Zorix's representative, a high-ranking Varex named Sorth, spoke next. The humans harbor fugitives that possess technology rightfully belonging to the strong. This is a simple matter of natural law. The weak serve the strong. When Chen's turn came, she looked out at the assembly. Some species she recognized, others were so alien she could barely comprehend their forms. But all were watching, waiting for her words. For too long the Concord has stood by while the Varex conquered and subjugated. You've told yourselves it's the natural order, that some species are meant to rule and others to serve. Humanity rejects this. We believe all intelligent life has the right to self-determination. A murmur ran through the assembly. The Miralani came to us for help and we gave it freely. Not because we wanted their technology or resources, but because it was the right thing to do. Now I ask each of you, what kind of galaxy do you want to live in? One ruled by fear, where the strong prey on the weak, or one where different species work together, each contributing their unique strengths? Chen paused, looking directly at the Varex representative. You misunderstand humanity's power. It's not our weapons or even our unpredictable tactics. It's that we fight hardest not for ourselves but for others. The debate raged for hours. Species that had never dared oppose the Varex began speaking out. Others, fearful of retribution, urged appeasement. The assembly seemed evenly divided. Then something unexpected happened. Lieutenant Levine, who had been working tirelessly on her intelligence mission, discovered something shocking. Using data gathered from resistance movements across Varex territory, she found proof that the Varex had been secretly holding Miralani captives from their original homeworld. They've been forcing them to develop weapons, she reported to Chen via secure channel. I'm sending you the evidence now. When Chen presented this information to the assembly, the reaction was immediate. Even species sympathetic to the Varex were disturbed by this revelation. The Miralani representative, a young crystal being named Lyrix, seemed to shrink into itself at the news that some of its people had been enslaved all this time. The Varex representative, Sorth, was furious. This is human propaganda. They fabricate these lies to turn the Concord against us. In his anger, Sorth made a fatal mistake. He lunged toward Lyrix, clearly intending to attack the Miralani representative. Before the Concord security forces could react, 6 human diplomats, part of Chen's staff, threw themselves between Sorth and his target. The Varex's claws tore into human flesh instead of Miralani crystal. The assembly erupted in chaos. When order was finally restored, 5 of the humans were severely injured, 1 fatally, but Lyrix was unharmed. protected by people who had known the Marilani for less than a decade. The sacrifice shifted the mood of the assembly. Species that had been hesitant to choose sides were moved by the humans' willingness to die protecting an alien ally. After a tense vote, the Concord made an unprecedented decision. For the first time in its history, it would actively oppose one of its founding members. The Varex Empire was suspended from the Concord, and member worlds were authorized to provide aid to Earth and its allies. As Chen left the assembly chamber, exhausted but triumphant, she received an urgent message from Admiral Volkov. The Varex Emperor has just launched a direct assault on Earth itself, Volkov reported grimly. He's going all in, Elena. If this fails, we'll have won the diplomatic battle but lost the war. Chen looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. Somewhere out there, humanity was fighting for its very existence. They won't fail, she said softly. They're protecting their friends. Emperor Zorik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Invincible, as it led the final assault on Earth. Around him, his most elite commanders monitored the battle with growing concern. The Emperor had committed everything to this attack, if it failed. His 3-century rule would be in serious jeopardy. The humans have moved their defensive fleet to protect their homeworld, reported his tactical officer. But their numbers are thin. They cannot withstand our full might. Zorik studied the tactical display. After weeks of fighting, the human fleet had been reduced to less than half its original size. The remaining ships formed a protective barrier around Earth, their formation tight and disciplined, unlike the unpredictable patterns they had used in earlier battles. They learn, Zorix noted. They adapt to our expectations. He had come to respect these humans, though he would never admit it to his commanders. They fought with a determination he had never seen in any other species. Begin the assault, he ordered. No mercy, no prisoners. Show them the price of defiance. The Varex fleet surged forward, thousands of warships against a few hundred human defenders. The battle should have been over in minutes, but as the Varex approached Earth orbit, they encountered something unexpected. Behind the military vessels was a second line of defense, thousands of civilian ships. Cruise liners, private yachts, mining platforms, even space stations that had detached from their moorings, all placing themselves between the Varex weapons and their home world. What is this madness? Zorix demanded. They sacrifice their civilians? For what purpose? On the bridge of the UES Defender, Admiral Volkov watched the civilian fleet with a mixture of pride and fear. She had ordered them to evacuate, not to join the battle line. Message from the civilian coordinator, her communications officer reported. They say, we stand with our defenders, we stand with our Marilani friends, together to the end. Volkov closed her eyes briefly. Acknowledge their message, and may whatever gods they believe in watch over them. The Varex fleet opened fire. The military vessels took the brunt of the attack, their luminous shields flaring as they absorbed and redirected energy. But some shots broke through, striking the civilian ships behind them. There were no shields there, no advanced defenses, just ordinary humans in ordinary vessels, willing to die to protect their world and their allies. Emperor Zorix watched, in disbelief as civilian ship after civilian ship was hit. Yet instead of fleeing, the survivors maintained position. This is madness, when he broadcast. You sacrifice your lives for principle. The response came from Admiral Volkov. No, we sacrifice for each other. That's the difference you never understood. As the battle raged in space, Varex boarding parties breached several of Earth's orbital defense stations. They expected minimal resistance from the scientific and technical crews staffing these facilities. Instead, they found humans and Marilani fighting side by side. The physically fragile Marilani using their computational abilities to predict enemy movements, while their human allies provided the physical defense. On Defense Station Gamma, a young Marilani technician named Alara worked frantically at a control panel while Human Security Officer Jackson Chen held off 3 Varex soldiers with a makeshift barricade. How much longer? Chen shouted, firing his weapon through a gap in the barrier. 30 seconds, Ilara replied, her crystalline form vibrating with concentration. The targeting system is almost recalibrated. Make it 15, Chen grunted, as a Varex energy blast hit dangerously close to his position. I don't think this barricade will hold much longer. Ilara's crystal fingers moved with impossible speed across the controls. Done. The station's main cannon is now linked to my predictive algorithm. Firing solution plotted. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Humans providing physical protection, while their Miralani partners contributed their unique mental abilities. Together they achieved what neither species could have done alone. Emperor Zorix watched in growing fury as his fleet's advantage began to erode. The humans were somehow targeting his ship's vulnerable spots with uncanny accuracy. His tactical display showed red warnings spreading across his formation. They cannot be this precise, he snarled. No human targeting system is this advanced. It's not human, Emperor, his science officer replied nervously. We're detecting Miralani energy, signatures from the defense stations. They're using their computational abilities to guide the humans' weapons. Zorix slammed his fist into the arm of his command chair, cracking the metal. Target the Miralani evacuation ships, he ordered. If they value their allies so much, let's see how they react when those allies are threatened. The Varex fleet shifted focus, concentrating fire on the vessels carrying Miralani refugees away from the battle zone. These ships had the strongest luminous shields, but even they couldn't withstand the concentrated firepower of hundreds of Varex warships. What happened next would be retold in stories across the galaxy for centuries to come. As the shields on the Miralani evacuation ships began to fail, human vessels, both military and civilian, deliberately placed themselves in the line of fire. Dozens of human ships were destroyed, sacrificing themselves to protect their crystalline allies. From his command ship, Emperor Zorix watched in stunned disbelief. In 300 years of conquest, he had never witnessed anything like this. One species willingly dying to save another. This defies all logic, he murmured. Then something changed in the Emperor's expression. For the first time in the entire conflict, he looked uncertain. In that moment of hesitation, Admiral Volkov saw her opportunity. All ships execute final protocol, she ordered. The remaining human fleet suddenly shifted formation. Instead of defending, they attacked, not the main Varex fleet, but directly targeting the Emperor's flagship. It was a suicide run, with ships sacrificing themselves to clear a path for the defender to reach the invincible. As Varex defenses concentrated on the human attack, Miralani technicians across the battlefield activated their secret weapon, a modified version of the luminous shield technology that created not a defensive barrier, but a disruptive field. When triggered, it created a cascading failure in the Varex ship's power systems. One by one, Varex warships lost power, their weapons and engines failing. Not permanently, but long enough to matter. Emperor Zorix felt his mighty flagship shudder as its systems began to fail. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. Retreat, he ordered, the word bitter on his tongue. All ships, retreat and regroup. But it was too late. The UES Defender, its hull scarred and burning from multiple hits, broke through the last line of defense and confronted the Invincible directly. Admiral Volkov's face appeared on the Emperor's screen. This ends now, Emperor, she said. Your fleet is disabled. Your invasion has failed. Surrender or be destroyed. Zorix stared at the human admiral, seeing not weakness in her expression, but a determined strength he had never truly understood. You would have made a worthy adversary in a fair fight, he said. We didn't want an adversary at all, Volkov replied. We wanted peace. You still don't understand us. In that moment, as his officers looked to him for guidance, Emperor Zorix the Unyielding finally understood the fundamental error in the Varex philosophy. Strength wasn't measured in firepower or the ability to conquer. It was measured in what you were willing to sacrifice for others. I surrender, he said, the words strange and unfamiliar. The Varex Empire surrenders to Earth and its allies. In the aftermath, as the galaxy adjusted to a new reality, where the Varex no longer dominated through fear, a memorial was built on the rebuilt Europa station. It didn't glorify the human victory, but commemorated the alliance that made it possible. Humans and Marilani stood together in crystalline sculpture, with an inscription that became the new motto of Earth's diplomatic corps. The universe's greatest power isn't the ability to take life, but the willingness to give it for others. Threaten one of us and you threaten all of us. The galaxy had made its deadliest mistake. They had assumed that humanity's compassion was weakness. They never realized that this same compassion, when provoked, would become the most formidable force the stars had ever witnessed. As for the Marilani humans, their alliance only grew stronger. Together, they helped build a new galactic concord. One, based not on power and domination, but on mutual respect and protection. Many species still didn't understand humans, with their illogical emotions and unpredictable behavior. But they had learned one important lesson. Never threaten a human ally. It was indeed the galaxy's deadliest mistake.